I've never told anyone this story before. Even now, when I think about it, I get chills that crawl down my spine like cold fingertips. It happened 5 years ago, one autumn night, in a small town called Marion, in southern Illinois. A quiet place with more cornfields than streetlights, and a graveyard that everyone in town avoided after dark. Back then, I was working as a part-time photographer. I loved taking eerie nighttime shots. Abandoned buildings, foggy woods, and especially cemeteries. There was something about those old gravestones and iron gates that drew me in. They whispered stories of forgotten lives. I never believed in ghosts. Not then. That changed the night I went to Oak Ridge Cemetery. I remember it was mid-October, just days before Halloween. The air was crisp, the sky cloudless, and a full moon hung above the horizon like a pale, watchful eye. I parked my car on the side of the narrow road and slung my camera bag over my shoulder. My plan was simple: get some hauntingly beautiful long exposure shots of the old gravestones under the moonlight. As I walked through the rusty gate, it let out a long, screeching moan. It sounded almost alive. I laughed nervously and stepped inside. The cemetery stretched far into the darkness. Hundreds of tombstones, some leaning with age, others broken in half. The wind rustled through dry leaves that skittered across the ground like whispering voices. In the distance, an owl hooted. For a moment, it felt peaceful, beautiful even. I set up my tripod near a row of 19th century graves. The names were barely readable, worn away by time. I adjusted my camera, clicked the shutter, and the soft whir of the lens echoed in the stillness. But then I heard something. A faint sound of footsteps behind me. At first, I thought maybe it was just my imagination, maybe an animal or the wind shifting fallen branches. But the steps were steady, deliberate, crunching softly on gravel. I froze. Slowly, I turned around. No one was there. The moonlight spilled across the graves, but the path was empty. I stood still, listening. My heart was hammering. After a moment, I exhaled and shook my head. "You're just freaking yourself out," I muttered. I went back to taking pictures, but the feeling didn't leave. I could sense something watching me, like eyes following every movement I made. The air suddenly grew colder, sharp enough that I could see my breath, even though it wasn't that cold a night. That's when I noticed a figure near the far end of the cemetery. At first, I thought it was a tree trunk or a statue, but then it moved, slowly, deliberately, emerging from the shadows. It was a man. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like a dark overcoat and a wide-brimmed hat. He carried an old-fashioned lantern that flickered faintly, casting long shadows across the tombstones. He was walking toward me. My first thought was that he might be a security guard or caretaker. I raised my hand and called out, "Hey! Sorry, I'm just taking some pictures. I'll leave in a few minutes." No answer. The man kept walking. His steps were slow, measured. When the lantern light touched his face, I realized he was off somehow. His skin was pale gray, almost colorless. His eyes were dark, too dark. It felt like he was looking straight through me. "Sir?" I called again, my voice trembling slightly. "Is this private property?" He stopped about 30 feet away and tilted his head slightly, as if studying me. Then he spoke, but his voice sounded distant, hollow, like it was echoing from somewhere far underground. "You shouldn't be here after sundown." I swallowed hard. I didn't mean any trouble. He interrupted me. "They don't like visitors." I frowned. "Who?" He turned his head toward the rows of graves behind him. "Them." A chill ran through me. I wanted to laugh it off, to tell him it wasn't funny, but something in his tone told me he wasn't joking. Before I could reply, the lantern flickered violently, and then went out. Everything went black. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. I couldn't see him anymore, just the empty graves and the silhouettes of trees. Then I heard whispering, low, breathy whispers all around me. Too many voices to count, circling, moving closer. "Leave. Leave, before it's too late. I spun around, shining my phone's flashlight in every direction, but there was no one there. The whispers kept shifting, like they were carried by the wind. I stumbled backward and tripped over a fallen gravestone, hitting the ground hard. When I looked up, I saw movement, shadows rising from the earth. It started as faint outlines, misty shapes taking form above the graves. Faces appeared, distorted and colorless. Eyes hollow, mouths open as if screaming in silence. The air was thick, freezing, and I could feel something pulling at me, like invisible hands clutching my clothes, my skin, my soul. I scrambled to my feet, grabbed my camera, and ran. The whispers grew louder, angrier. My flashlight flickered. I didn't dare look back, but I could hear footsteps, many footsteps, rushing behind me. When I reached the gate, I saw the man again, the gravekeeper. He was standing in front of it, blocking my way. His face was expressionless now, but his eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "Tell them I kept watch," he said softly.